God Stories Radio. This is session 57. I'm Fritz.
I'm Mike.
Jeez. What's going on, Mikey? How's your week been?
Just riding the wave.
You said that last week.
I know, and I'm still riding it.
I need a new board.
Yeah, a longer one or something. I'm just still waiting on, I believe God has been speaking a little bit here and there, and just, I don't know, I guess you want to say I'm getting a little, starting to, and trying to keep myself away from getting a little frustrated and such, and riding the wave.
Well, I think it's an interesting time for all of us, I think, and I know God's up to something concerning GSR, and we seem to be kind of in this holding pattern right now. I don't know, I think it's the test, it's the big push, before it gives birth. I think that something's up. What do you think, Trish?
I think so too. I think good things are happening with God Stories Radio.
Absolutely. We're live tonight on Spreaker. So if you're a Spreaker listening, tune in. We're live tonight on Spreaker.
Seriously?
Yes, seriously. So speaking of good things, we have a great guest tonight. Why don't you introduce him, Trish?
Sure. This is actually a guest that came to me from Suzanne from Z8.3. And we spoke last night. The night before last for 3 hours.
Wow.
Just about testimony and God and what God's done for you. This guy, he had drugs at the age of 9. His father died at 9, just like me, and just like me.
How do you afford drugs? That's what I want to know. I'm going to ask you.
Do you want to know the truth?
Yeah.
I used to clean windows on cars at gas stations, and they would give me quarters and coins, and I would take that money and go buy cigarettes or buy drugs with it. That's what I did. I was an entrepreneur.
Inflation, even drugs are going up.
So, and this guy, he lived in Washington, D.C. too, so I feel like he's just a brother from another mother. And
awesome.
And without further ado, I'll give you J.D.
Hey, J.D., welcome to the program. Welcome, J.D. Marshall.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh, and I have to say that
Great to be here.
he actually is a truck driver, and we're always talking about taking God Stories Radio on the road, and his truck broke down in Missouri, and so he contacted me the night before last and said, I'm not going to be able to be there, and I said, you know what, we're supposed to be taking it on the road, we can do it from wherever you are. So from wherever you are, if you have a testimony, just get in touch with us at godstoriesradio@gmail.com, and our producer Fritz here will set you up on the telephone, and we'll get your testimony. So
Yeah, we will. This is like the third or fourth one. Yeah, I'm calling just like JD. So, well, take it away, my friend.
Well, I just want to share a testimony about, I actually came to the Lord back in 2001, listening to the Bible, traveling across the country, listening to, the Bible on CD, and had a very supernatural experience out in the middle of the desert in Wyoming that got me started. And so ever since then I've been, just seeking to do the Lord's will and whatever He has me to do. And back in 2004, I had read a book by a pastor down in Bradenton, Florida. His name was Gerald Durstein. And the book was called Following the Fire. And the book was so moving that I just had to go down to that church. And so the first time I went down there, the pastor of the church actually was basically retired from the head pastor of the church, and his son, Gerald Durstein, was the head pastor. Well, after the service, I went out and talked with the pastor, and he wanted to pray with me. And so we had a little prayer session, and he started prophesying, and he said that the Lord is going to show me something in a dream or a vision within the week of what He wants me to do. And I'm like, okay. This was kind of the first time that I'd ever been to a place where someone had prophesied over me. And And so anyway, I go back out to my van after he prophesied this, and just as soon as I climbed in my van, I felt very, very tired. So I just crawled in back to sleep. Well, instantly, the Lord takes me out of my physical body, you know, like in the Bible it says, being in the spirit.
Right.
He takes me out of my physical body, he takes me back out in front of the place where I was at. And this place is called Christian Retreat, Christian Community. And so we're standing out in front of the sign, and the Lord asked me, he says, how did you know these people were Christians? And I pointed up at the sign. I said, because I saw the sign. And at that moment, I came out of the dream. But the Lord had put it within my spirit that he wanted me to start displaying on my body who it was I was following. And so for 6 months, this went back and forth, you know, me trying to reason with God on the reasons why I should not do that. And I kept saying, Lord, if I put that on my body, and I've made a mistake, that's a reflection on you. So this went back and forth, Finally I said, okay, I'll do it. So I went to a printer, and I inquired about getting shirts made up, and she said, well, if you do at least 12 or whatever you're going to do, we won't charge a setup charge. And I'm like, okay. Well, I'll do 48 shirts. I'm going to do 4 different biblical verses. And she goes, well, do you want something on the front of the shirt? I said, yeah, put Jesus on the front. And so I go to pick up these shirts, and I mean, she put Jesus on the front. It's in big block letters all the way across your chest. And so when she showed it to me, I was like, ooh, wow, that'll get it done. So anyway, I loaded these shirts up in the car, and just as soon as I left, the Lord spoke to me, he said, all right, I want you to start giving them away. And I'm like, okay. So a few days later, I was over in Orlando, and I had stopped at a McDonald's, and this was on like a Sunday evening. And I come walking in the door wearing one of the shirts, and there was these 3 teenagers standing in line, and they're like, oh, I love that shirt you got on. I said, you want one? And then all 3 said, yeah. Well, I gave them 3 shirts, and then the rest of their Sunday night church Bible study class comes in. So there was probably, 18 to 24 people that showed up. And so I had enough shirts to give every one of them a shirt.
Wow.
And most of them were teenage kids, still in high school, junior high school. And so one of the kids says, well, I'm going to wear my shirt to school tomorrow. Well, that got all the other ones excited about, so they're all going to wear the shirts to school tomorrow. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. You know, they're going to start testifying publicly at their own schools because of something that you've given me to put out there for them. So anyway, I started doing this, and it was getting bigger and bigger. I was buying more and more shirts, and finally the Lord told me to make up a carload of Jesus shirts and go to Washington, D.C., and pass them out on the streets of D.C. Well, at one point, I bought a Chrysler PG Cruiser, and he had me put in big block letters on the side of the car, Jesus on the side of the car. And since then, I've added a lot more stuff to it. It's got the 10 Commandments on the hood. It's got some other things in the back windows and across the back of it. And he told me to take this car, go to Washington, D.C. So I also made up some signs that said Free Jesus T-shirts. So whenever I got up there, I could put it in the windows so people would know that I've got shirts in this car to give them. So if I go up to D.C., I get to the National Mall, which was where I was headed to try to give these shirts out. And so I got up there and I drove around, trying to find a good place to park to pass these things out. And I couldn't find a good place to park. So I finally went down by the Potomac River and got out my signs and was putting them in the windows. And this tour bus comes and parks right in front of me. And so the people on the tour bus started going, hey, I want a shirt. So I gave away maybe 25 of the 500 shirts I had with me. So I get back in the car after that, go back up, and start driving around again. Still, couldn't find a place to park. So I started getting frustrated, and I said, Lord, did you really send me up here? Because this is just not working. So he tells me to go have some lunch, come back after lunch, try again. I'm like, okay, sounds good. So I head down I-395, which heads right out of the center of D.C. It goes past the Pentagon, and I went a couple more exits south of the Pentagon and went and had some lunch. After having lunch, I pulled out of there, got back on the road. Just as soon as I turned on the road, there was a Hess gas station on my right-hand side. And I looked down at my fuel gauge, and I thought, well, if I'm going to get stuck just right around, I guess I better get some gas. So I pull in this gas station. Another gentleman pulls in behind me, and he hollers to me. He says, hey, do you know Gary Hannigan? I said, no. He goes, well, he's got a PT Cruiser just like what you got, with Jesus all over it, just like what you got. And he goes around handing out free Jesus t-shirts like what you're doing. I said, you're kidding.
He's got one in every town.
I said, you wouldn't happen to have it, would you? Now, this guy had only met him one time at some sort of Christian event up there in the area, but he had his phone number. So he gives me his phone, call this guy up, and I say, hey, my name is Jay, I'm from Florida, I have a PT Cruiser with Jesus all over, and the Lord sent me up here to pass out Jesus t-shirts on the streets of D.C. And he goes, no way. And so we chatted for a little while, and we planned on meeting later on that evening. He lives in a town called Maryland, which is about 30 miles north of D.C. So I get off the phone with him. I call my mother, which lives in Leesburg, Florida, and I tell her, there's some other guy down here with the same kind of car as me, doing the same thing I do. And she goes, no way. There can't be two of you. Talk to her for a little bit. I get off the phone with her. I call another sister in Christ from a church that I was attending down in Florida, and I'm telling her about it. Meanwhile, I get stuck in this massive traffic jam right in front of the Pentagon. And about that time, she asked me how it was going, giving away the Jesus shirts. And I said, well, it's not really going real good, but at that same time, I get stuck in this massive traffic jam where it was just stop and go, stop and go. You'd move a couple feet, stop again, move a couple feet, stop again. So I told her, I said, you know what? This would be a great place to pass these t-shirts out right in the middle of this traffic jam. Just as soon as those words came out of my mouth, a girl in the car next to me gets my attention. So I rolled down the window. She goes, can I get a t-shirt? I said, what size? She says, large. Well, the large was right behind the driver's seat, so I just reached back, grabbed one, tossed out the window to her. Well, the girl in the car behind her saw me do that. So she gets up there. She said, can I get one too? And I said, well, what size? She says, medium. I said, well, hang on, I got to pull over. The mediums are all the way in the back. So I pulled over on the shoulder of the highway and got out, and I opened up the back hatch of my car. And it was like a shark feeding frenzy. I gave away all those shirts in less than an hour, running across 4 lanes of traffic, handing out Jesus shirts. I mean, it was so exciting. I mean, I got such a thrill out of it that I just had to keep doing it. I called Brother Gary back after I gave away all those shirts, and he says, brother, I've given away a lot of t-shirts, but I've never given away that many t-shirts that quick. And so I went and met him, spent the next couple of days at his house, and he said, anytime you want to come up here, just give me a call. He said, I got a place for you. So about a month and a half later, I went back up there with 1,000 shirts, and in 2 different places, I gave away 1,000 shirts in 2 hours. So it's been a very exciting thing doing it. As far as my car is concerned, the Lord is just so funny in the way He uses words. One day, Brother Gary calls me up, and he's driving around up in Baltimore. And he says, the Lord told him to turn right, so he turned right. And he said, the Lord told him to turn right again, and he turned right again. And he said, the Lord told him to turn right again, he turned right again. And he finally said, Lord, what am I doing? He said, the Lord told him to look up. There was another PT Cruiser right in front of him,